just wrong. It was so wrong.
I'm not a normal person. I'm on the streets. I drink a lot. I have a huge alcohol problem.
He placed her body in a bathtub. Using a pruning saw, he dismembered her body, severing her limbs and head from her torso.
Seattle, Washington, early 2016. As spring softened winter's edge, 40-year-old Ingrid Lyne balanced her life as a nurse and mother of 3 with a new venture into online dating. In a city of 500,000 stories, hers began like countless others, a single parent looking for connection in the digital age. No one could have predicted how her search for companionship would end, or the horror that would unfold in the quiet suburbs of Renton that April. Behind the cheerful messages and heart emojis of dating apps, some users hide personas far darker than their carefully curated profiles suggest. For Ingrid, that truth would emerge too late. Long before she became a headline, Ingrid Marie Rounceville was the girl who always knew she wanted to help others. Born on August 2, 1975, she carried that dream from the sun-baked streets of Tucson, Arizona, through the halls of Canyon del Oro High School, and into the University of Arizona's nursing program. Her 1997 graduation with a Bachelor of Science in Nursing was a personal triumph, and the beginning of a life dedicated to healing. By 2000, Ingrid had traded Arizona's desert landscape for the evergreen shores of Washington State. At Seattle's Swedish Medical Center, she quickly became known as the nurse who could light up a room with her smile, whose petite frame carried an outsized compassion that touched everyone she met. Colleagues remember her infectious laugh echoing through hospital corridors, her ability to calm anxious patients with just a few gentle words, and her endless stories about her 3 daughters. Those daughters, Noelle, Brooke, and Reese, were her world. At ages 10, 8, and 6, they filled her Renton home with the chaos and joy that only children can bring. Every Thursday night was their special steakhouse dinner, a tradition that brought squeals of delight from the girls. Summer meant trips to Big Fork, Montana, for 4th of July celebrations, where Ingrid would spend hours helping her daughters chase fireflies as twilight settled over the mountains. Even after her 2014 divorce from Philip Lyne, their daughter's father, Ingrid refused to let bitterness creep into their co-parenting relationship. She transformed what could have been a painful split into a partnership focused solely on their daughter's happiness. Her neighbor, Edward Franceschina, often watched in amazement as she shepherded 3 kids and multiple backpacks to her car each morning, somehow making it look effortless. But a woman's life is not solely based on being a mother. So, in early 2016, Ingrid decided to give online dating a try. Juggling a hectic nursing schedule and raising 3 young kids, finding time for traditional dating felt nearly impossible. The digital world seemed like the perfect solution, a way to meet someone without adding more chaos to her life. That's when she came across John Robert Charlton on a dating app. For 4 weeks, John Charlton wove himself into the fabric of Ingrid's life. The relationship followed the familiar rhythm of modern dating. Messages turned to phone calls, then to evenings at her Renton home. He stayed over sometimes, joining the morning rush as Ingrid got the girls ready for school. To anyone watching, they seemed like any new couple navigating the early stages of dating. Friends who met him noticed nothing unusual. No red flags, no warning signs. On Friday, April 8, 2016, Ingrid rushed through her morning routine, already thinking about the evening ahead. She had tickets to the Mariners game with John. At 7:10 p.m., they'd be watching baseball under the stadium lights. That afternoon, she paused at her mailbox, chatting with her neighbor Edward Franceschina, who had come to view her almost as a daughter. It would be the last time he would see her alive. Saturday morning brought the kind of silence that slowly turns to dread. Phil Lyne pulled into the driveway at 10 a.m., daughters in tow, ready for their weekend with Mom. The empty space where Ingrid's Toyota Highlander should have been didn't worry him at first. But as minutes ticked by without an answer at the door, without a response to his calls, the hollow feeling in his stomach grew. He reached out to Ingrid's mother, Jorga Bass, who had a spare key to the house. Inside, Ingrid's purse sat untouched. Her cell phone and driver's license were there. Everything that a person would normally take with them was still in the house, but Ingrid was nowhere to be found. With trembling fingers, Jorga found a number in her daughter's phone records and began texting. John Charlton's responses trickled in, each message more unsettling than the last. Yes, they'd gone to the game. No, they hadn't spent the night together. She had the kids coming home after all. But something in his tone felt wrong. As Jorga's messages grew more desperate, telling him Ingrid was missing, that police needed to speak with him, his replies became shorter, vaguer, until they stopped coming at all. Miles away, in Seattle's Central District, another story was about to break open. The afternoon sun had climbed to its peak when Mike Navasio walked to his recycling bin, puzzled by its weight. The regular collection had come and gone on Thursday. The bin should have been empty. As he lifted the lid, he had no way of knowing he was about to uncover something that would change his life and his city forever. 3 translucent plastic bags contained human remains: a head, a foot, an arm with a hand, and a lower leg. The facial features were still recognizable enough to later identify them as belonging to Ingrid. In the days that followed, more of her remains would be discovered at different locations around Seattle, some at a recycling facility, others in a cooler, though not all would ever be found. In the race against time, detectives pieced together Ingrid's final hours. The Mariners' tickets on her laptop confirmed the game. Witnesses placed them at a bar afterward, then back to her Renton home. But nothing could prepare investigators for what awaited them there. In Ingrid's bathroom, investigators discovered blood and human tissue. Under the bathtub, they found more human remains. A 15-inch pruning saw was recovered from the scene. In the kitchen, an almost empty package of plastic bags, identical to those now scattered across Seattle, holding pieces of a mother, a nurse, a daughter. John Robert Charlton was arrested on April 11th. His story began to unravel during questioning. He claimed to have been too intoxicated to remember much of what happened after returning to Ingrid's house, saying only that they had sex and that she had been acting weird.
And what is an address for you, John?
I'm homeless.
Are you? Where are you staying right now?
On the streets.
Where do you get your mail at?
My mail?
Do you get mail like you have a P.O. box? Or
What is this all about?
You knew her. What's your relationship with her? Have you been dating her consistently since you met, or?
I would say, I guess, yeah.
Did she let you stay at her place, or were you staying elsewhere?
She let me stay there sometimes.
How often were you guys seeing one another, like over the last couple weeks?
A couple times a week, I guess.
And what kind of things did you guys like to do together?
Just hang out. Adult stuff, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
I don't know if I want to get into that too much.
He suggested she must have driven him to downtown Seattle, where he allegedly slept on a sidewalk. But his body betrayed him. Fresh abrasions marked his forehead. His lip and chin bore fresh wounds. Scratches crisscrossed his chest. His left hand told its own story of violence. An ex-girlfriend would later describe seeing him that Saturday, his lips swollen and hurt. And as the investigation deepened, Charlton's troubled past came to light. He had a criminal record spanning 6 states, including convictions for aggravated robbery, felony theft, grand theft auto, assault, and third-degree larceny. But the most chilling chapter came from his own family. In 2006, Ray and Joanne Charlton had stood before a judge, seeking protection from their son. They described his explosive anger, his drunken rages. They told of the night he forced his mother to watch Hannibal, whispering, "Beware," as the movie played. They spoke of years-long grudges, of violence simmering beneath the surface, of a son who terrified them when drugs or alcohol took hold. The case against Charlton grew stronger by the day. 3 of his fingerprints were found on the driver's door handle of Ingrid's car, which was later discovered in Seattle's Belltown neighborhood. The plastic bags in her kitchen matched those holding her remains. In the prosecution's reconstruction, a horrifying timeline emerged. Strangulation in her home, followed by hours of methodical dismemberment in her own bathtub. Initially pleading not guilty, Charlton later changed his plea to guilty before the trial began. On January 5, 2018, he stood before King County Superior Court Judge Julie Spector for sentencing. The judge, having read more than 24 letters from Ingrid's family, friends, and colleagues, spoke of a woman who had lived life fully despite her small stature. She described Ingrid's work as a nurse, her dedication to her daughters, and the vibrant spirit that had touched so many lives. Even Phil Lyne addressed the court about the devastating impact on their daughters. There would be no more motherly advice from Ingrid, no more July 4th holidays in Big Fork, Montana, no more Thursday night dinners at their favorite steakhouse. Their daughters, while resilient, faced a future without their mother's guidance and love. Their children would never know their maternal grandmother. Charlton received the maximum sentence allowed under state guidelines, 27 years and 9 months in prison. Judge Spector made it clear that if she could have sentenced him to life, she would have. His crime, she stated, was vicious and cruel beyond anyone's belief, made worse by his treatment of Ingrid's body afterward. She left a void in her family's heart. And even today, in the quiet neighborhoods of Renton, neighbors like Edward Franceschina still remember the petite nurse who checked her mail that Friday afternoon, heading out for what should have been just another date, just another evening in a life full of promise and possibility.